When we hear people speaking of their faith, it's not uncommon to hear someone say the phrase, I am spiritual but not religious. I get it. Every single one of us, I believe, has this deep call, this deep longing for something greater than ourselves, for spirituality, for connection, meaning, and some sort of bigger spiritual reality. And so we're often drawn to that which is good, that which is spiritual, that which is beyond ourselves. And honestly, it's not surprising that some folks would look around at various religious groups and say, I don't want any part of that. Or maybe you've heard people say when speaking of their faith, I don't find God in church. I find God in creation. If I go out to the woods or go to the lake or go to the ocean, the shore, or the mountains, wherever it is, there, amongst creation and all of its beauty, there I find the Creator. I get that too. What sense would it make if the author of creation wouldn't be found in and amongst the beautiful things that have been made? Of course, you can find God out there. But that's not why we're here. That's not the reason that we gather week in and week out to worship together. Rather, Jesus knew well what he was doing when he came with the very real intention of beginning a church, not a club of spiritual people, nor a club to organize some sort of me and God society. We're gathered as a religion and as a church for a very important reason. And particularly today, as we begin our academic year and we call for the blessing of the Holy Spirit to fill us with wisdom, there's a new urgency to the community in our midst. Think of it this way. Think about the last time you threw a party. I hear rumors that there have been a lot of great parties on campus the last couple of weeks, weekends. I see some heads nodding. I don't want details. So you throw a party. You go to the grocery store and you fill your shopping cart filled with tasty food. You get home and you load down your coolers with ice and frosty beverages. You spend time preparing the food and or organizing it, putting it out to celebrate and to enjoy. Maybe you even go to the extent of cleaning up the room or the house so that it looks a little bit more organized for your guests. And the moment comes. The party arrives, but you invite no one? How ridiculous is that? Who throws a party and invites no one? I don't know of anybody that does this. Because we understand it's automatic in our culture that if you're going to throw a party, the point of a party is to gather a community together to celebrate, to enjoy, to socialize, and to have a good time together. The point of a party is the community. The point of our religion is the same thing. The point of our faith is not simply to gather so that we can be spiritual people together. Don't lose that. Don't give up your spirituality. Hold on to that. The point of our sitting here in the same spot isn't just so my personal relationship with God gets deeper. No, don't get rid of that either. But it's something deeper. It's something more meaningful. The reality and the implication of all of the readings this weekend challenges us to understand that if we are authentically going to grow in the wisdom of the Holy Spirit, if we're actually going to be about the work that's set before us this academic year, if we're really going to grow in holiness, we can't do it alone. There is no person that I'm aware of that has come to great levels of wisdom and learning on their own. No one that I know of has ever come to profound depths of holiness without a community supporting them, encouraging them, challenging them even, and drawing them into something greater than themselves. See, left alone, Jesus knew this, which is why he didn't start a community of spiritual people. He started a church because he knew we needed one another to learn, to grow in wisdom, to grow in virtue. I can't do this on my own, and I'm speaking very honestly. I can't grow as a disciple of Jesus Christ. I can't grow in wisdom without you. I need your challenge, your example, your enthusiasm, and your faith to inspire and draw me forward. And I would dare say the same thing. You can't grow without each other nor me. And so that's what Jesus is giving us instructions about today in the gospel. If someone sins against you, here's the way to very respectfully, kindly, and authentically call them to something better. Go to them one on one. Just, hey, I wanted to let you know. If that doesn't work, bring some other folks to help. If that still doesn't work, well, then bring it to the community of the church. And still, if that doesn't work, then treat them as you would a Gentile or tax collector. And though that may sound harsh, wait a minute. Think about how Jesus treated the Gentiles and the tax collectors. His patience, his compassion, his enthusiasm for mercy. And so our response must always be one of respect, compassion, mercy, and patience, regardless of what the sin is, nor regardless of how seriously it has hurt us. But here's the flip side. As much as we have the responsibility, we also have the obligation. Because it may well be when the day comes when we're the one who has to be challenged to grow. Any student knows the experience of day in and day out being challenged to grow in wisdom and knowledge, but it may be that the day comes where you're challenged to grow in holiness. That isn't comfortable, but we can't do it without each other. Now, I know that the news as of late is dominated based on storms and great tragedy, but if you flip the page over, you'll see the same stories repeated. Stories of injustice, suffering, violence, threats of war. Have you had enough? Do you really long for that day when somehow, somewhere, someone finally puts an end to all this? Because if you were listening to the book of Ezekiel in our first reading, God challenges us to not just see our faith, our religion, as being responsible to the person next to you in the pew, but rather is responsible to the people outside these walls. Ezekiel says this: You, you, I have appointed watchmen for the house of Israel. You, I have called to speak to the world the message of my gospel. You must say what I tell you to say. You must warn them for me. Because our world is filled with people who long for violence, injustice, suffering, marginalization, and war. You must be the ones sent out to warn them, to challenge them, and to ask them, enough is enough. I want no more war. I want no more poverty. I want no more injustice. I want to see it end in my life. Can you come with me as Ezekiel challenges us and to take up our responsibility to not only let the wisdom given to us in the classroom, not only let the challenge in this walls of worship, not only let this moment inspire us to be better and holier, but can we let all of that work, the work of the Holy Spirit, drive us out of these walls to actually help work with the Spirit as the world might be put right. St. Paul says this: brothers and sisters, owe nothing to anyone except love. Love one another. For as much as we know there are rules about this, moral laws about that, laws and rules, and all those types of things that seem so burdensome, St. Paul says this: you know the commandments, but they're all summed up in this: love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no evil to the neighbor. Hence, love is the fulfillment of the law. The gospel is concluded with these words: that when we gather and we agree on what it is to pray for, God will ratify our prayer in heaven. If we ask for justice in our day, God will answer it. If we beg that the sufferings of the poor and the marginalized might come to an end, God will answer it only by sending us. If we beg God to end war and violence in our world, He sends us to do that, but He answers our prayer. This is the work of the Holy Spirit. This is the work of education, because no one is educated to this level of a university degree for the purpose of keeping it to themselves. Religion is not about us simply being spiritual, nor is it about us having a private relationship with God. It is about those things, but much more. We bear a responsibility to our world. We are sent. And when we gather in prayer, when we gather as a community as we do, we know that Jesus hears our prayer. Because He said it right here: where two or three are gathered in my name, I am there in their midst. We know the Lord is with us. We know that we've agreed to pray for justice, an end to war, violence, marginalization, and suffering. We know He hears the prayer. And now, all we must do is love our neighbor